Welcome to Just Off the Highway. I'm Prodgers. This is a return visit to Swartkop Air Force Base in Pretoria, home of the South African Air Force Museum. I was here just a few months ago doing an episode about the restoration of Spitfire 5518. And while I was chatting to the people involved in that project, I heard a particular sound. I heard that, and it took me straight back to my childhood. You see, when I was a little boy, my childhood home was close to Easterplaat Air Force Base in Cape Town. And I still remember the engine note of a Harvard trainer aircraft. And now suddenly I got to hear it all again after those decades, because Swartkop is also the home of the Harvard Club of South Africa.
There are currently 4 aircraft that are airworthy and several that are in the process of restoration. This club actually fixes and flies genuine World War II military aircraft that served in the South African Air Force from 1942 till 1995.
The South African Air Force is the second oldest in the world. Only the Royal Air Force has a slightly longer history. And the Harvard, also known internationally as the Texan, because so many of them were built in Texas in the USA, is an intrinsic part of that history. For generations of Air Force flyers, the Harvard became part of their DNA. It's why they simply call her the pilot maker. Now, they have a few other names for her as well. The first Harvard pilot that I met off camera called the aircraft a magnificent. And another said that she has all the characteristics of a wild horse. Not many 80-year-olds can do this. They have a distinctive roar and clatter, a unique signature that's caused by the tips of the propeller blades going around so fast that they break the sound barrier. You're actually hearing a series of little sonic booms. As a kid, I would look up and see the silver and day-glow orange aircraft sailing overhead. They flew in strict, tight formations, whole squadrons at a time. Each one has a large, unique number painted on the side of the fuselage so that they can be easily identified from the ground. In those days, as we rode our bicycles down the street, we'd race the planes from lamppost to lamppost. It felt like if I could just pedal a little faster, I might take off too. It felt like possibility. But then we grew up. We left home. One day the Harvards were gone too. Cape Town, Springs, Pretoria, all the cities where these magnificent creatures once roamed the skies changed. Sure, they modernized and they became faster and slicker, but they lost something. They lost a part of their voice. Maybe we got so absorbed in our lives on the ground that we stopped looking up into the sky. In our hurry, we didn't even realize that every time we board an airliner, a vast number of the pilots who flew us across the country and the world had received their training in Harvards. But it all came rushing back. That day here at Swartkop, when I met the people at the Harvard Club and got up close to the aircraft. Time falls away. A kind of magic takes over.
I love being here, just being around them. Even if they're just hanging, not flying the day or no engine runs. It's just, for me, it's a privilege to stand amongst these legends.
The reason we keep doing this, pure and simple, because we love them. They're our babies. Firstly, I would give them the invite. More than welcome. The club is open to all races, all ages. No specific talent needed. If you do know your way around an aircraft, or you can fly one, so much the better. We teach our youngsters how to marshal the aircraft. You've seen it at Oliver Tambo, all your hand signals as the aircraft takes in. We teach them that. And get them involved, get them interested.
I couldn't resist becoming a member of the Harvard Club, and although I'm technically useless, I was welcomed. Whatever your interest or skill, there's a part of the project where you can get involved.
The Harvard Club meets every Saturday. We are here every Saturday. And on a typical Saturday, we will be busy in the hangar with the aircraft, washing the aircraft. Sometimes we'll take them out, we'll do some engine runs. We'll work on our rebuilds. Then we've got another project going with 059. We're busy stripping all the paint. So she's going to be repainted into her original colors. So there's always something to do, even if it's sweeping the hangar.
If you're like me, they give you a job where you can do the least amount of damage. When the Harvard Club said they were going to introduce me to a stripper, I didn't realize this is what they had in mind. I should have worked with my mask on, because after that, I was high enough to be picked up on radar. Some of the members are training as ground crew and getting valuable experience.
There's a huge future in aviation. To come into the Harvard Club, you will learn from ground crew how to marshal aircraft. So if you have the ability to do this here, then you can go later and study forward to go and work as a ground crew member at a large international airport. And you can also learn from aircraft technical parts, where you can go and study further.
So everybody's welcome. The pilot members have such a wealth of experience. They have enough stories to fill a dozen episodes.
Okay, I'm Wessel Vorst, ex-Air Force. I was in the SAAF for 30 years, and my last position was I was officer commanding of 28th Squadron, and I left the Air Force in 2000. It really is very nice once you get the hang of it, you know, because it's tricky, because it's a tail dragger, and you know, of course, the center of gravity is behind the pivot point. You know, that it's like trying to reverse a car at high speed. You know, you're not going to get it right. Fortunately, you have the rudder and that sort of thing for directional control. It's a very, very good trainer. It's difficult in the beginning. I can't think of any particular moment which was a highlight, but every time there were aerobatics to be done, that was something to look forward to. So it's another world, and it's a pleasure to do that.
Even hair-raising moments are shared in the spirit of training. There's an old saying amongst aviators that you need to learn from the mistakes of others so that you live long enough to make mistakes of your own.
I was a student pilot, pupil pilot as we used to be called. When you start the Harvard, especially on a cold day, you know, you need to prime it quite a lot with fuel. Get excess fuel, or extra fuel rather, into the inlet manifold. And I had over-primed. And then there's a little drain, you know, and it starts showing, dripping, and showing that you've over-primed. And the ground crew chappie, quite a junior chappie, you know, working on the flight line, he actually showed to me, he says, this thing's dripping, you know. So I said, oh, okay, you know, and stop. To give you an idea, you don't switch on the magnetos before you get the thumbs up from the ground crew, and you show him that you are switching on the magnetos. So the magnetos were off. And he gets on the wing and he says to me, okay, CO, just switch off the mags and I'll turn the prop. I hadn't switched them on yet. And when he said switch them off, I switched them on. And the guy turned the prop. It fired, the engine fired, just from turning the prop. And it hit him across this way, and he was on the left-hand side of the aircraft. And the prop picked him up, threw him across to in front of the other wing. And I, of course, got a terrible scare. I thought I'd killed the guy. And the rest of the guys on the ground saw what was happening, and they came and they, you know, got him. And the tower saw what happened, and they sent out an ambulance. And the chappie was taken and away. Fortunately, he hadn't sustained too serious injuries, but he was bruised, of course, you know, black from the prop. And I was in a state, you know, and I thought, well, this is the end of my flying career. So the next thing, my instructor was there, and he just said to me, he says, now you get in that Harvard, you make sure you do it right and just get the hell out of here. And the reason for that, I'll later contemplate it, was so that one doesn't lose confidence, because in flying, that's why you do solo flying, so much solo flying, so it's confidence building.
They fly the way they want to fly, they make you fly, they improve your flying. They will soon tell you if you're not flying properly. They let you know. As I started my conversion, it seemed to come right. My flying seemed to come together. I was on heading, on altitude. My approach to landing in the top runway, it was on rails. My instructor, John von der Linde, all he was saying, good, keep it there. I kept it there and I ended up bouncing it. But it was a great moment. Great.
When you get up close to these aircraft, you begin to notice things, like their size. Harvards are not small aircraft, and they're held together by individual rivets and bolts and screws that were not installed by some robot, but by some real person. A real person that intends you to go up into the clouds and return home safely. And there are oil smudges. Ground crew tend to say that if there are no oil marks, the plane is out of oil. The markings are as individual as any living thing. No two are exactly alike. They're painted in different colors according to their different periods of service. This yellow is how she would have looked during the Korean War. This beauty, 7166, is wearing her World War II roundels and highly visible yellow and black color scheme because her role was to tow an airborne target for gunnery practice. Somebody sat in this cockpit every day and invited gunners to shoot, not exactly at them, but pretty damn close behind. And if you see this smallish gold insignia on the tail just above the fin flash, it designates these aircraft as flying museums. 10 of them have been awarded the status of South African cultural treasures. And I began to notice some other strange warnings and signs, each with their own special meaning, that's often not immediately obvious to the complete novice. When these were trainers for the South African Air Force, the aircraft numbers that ended in odd numbers were all labeled in English. So as you can see, this one has a baggage compartment and a starter crank. All those aircraft that ended in even numbers were labeled in Afrikaans. So you can see here you have a bagasie compartment and a knormoerslinger. Now I have to admit that a knormoerslinger sounds like something that happens after too many brandies. They all have personalities. Each member has their own favorite.
My favorite one is 306. That was the very first one I flew in. We did a fly over the Voortrekker Monument for an event. So, and it's also the first one I towed behind the track. So it's got a very special place in my heart.
I remember the first time that I flew in a Harvard was 024. One of the best days of my life. It was pure joy, pure joy. I had a smile from ear to ear the entire day.
The members are friendly. They took me on a walk around and spoke with such reverence of hundreds of little quirks and features. It's like being in a thoroughbred racehorse stable. Now, I want to show you something that was illustrated to me that shows the love and attention to detail in these aircraft. This is an American-made plane. The engine is a 9-cylinder Pratt & Whitney radial engine, and there's a nut that coincidentally is the exact size of a 1940s US penny. And the tradition is that a penny is placed inside the nut, fixed in position so that it stays there forever. There's one in every aircraft. And there's no official explanation. It doesn't strictly need to be here. 80 years ago, somebody cared enough to put it there. Remember, there was a war on. The mechanic who built this and maintained this engine knew that the pilots and trainees depended on their skill, put their lives on the line, trusting that this engine wouldn't let them down. And so they put that there as a little personal gesture of adding something of value that says, I care. I think that sums up the attitude of the Harvard Club of South Africa. They know that they're looking after something very special and valuable. They care. If you've enjoyed this episode of Just Off the Highway, please give it a like and share it. If you'd like me to keep on making them, please pop a penny of your own in this channel's engine by clicking on the thanks button below the video, or become a supporter or a member on buymeacoffee.com/lprodgers and visit the Harvard Club of South Africa. Get involved. For me, it's the closest I've managed to get to fulfilling that little boy dream of possibility. Maybe one day. In reality, most of us are never going to be able to be pilots. But if you join the Harvard Club, you can honestly say, a bunch of us get together on the weekend and we make museums fly. Cheers.